Hello all, this is the Reaper speaking. This is an audio log of my adventure to Europa to investigate rumors of the House of Salvation. Rumor has it they have been surging lately. Biggest point of evidence towards this is the increased Vex activity, especially around the Riis-Reborn Approach. There hasn't been this much activity of the Vex on the Galilean moon since the glassway was opened up by Aramis, the Kell of Darkness, over a year ago during the House of Salvation's stasis crisis. Before we continue, I would like to say if you are getting less of me talking throughout this audio log, I'm sorry. It's because talking for a really long time does sometimes take the wind out of you. But, easy come, easy goes, you get what you get, all that nonsense. Anyways, throughout my travels on this Galilean moon, the Vex seem to be engaged in combat with the remnants of the House of Salvation. The last time the House of Salvation was ever seen as a threat was during the Aramis and her House of Salvation using stasis crisis that happened over a year ago. Now, it seems to be they're back in action. Especially since last time they ever had a surge in activity was during the Endless Night Crisis when we had to save Mithrax and his House of Light from them. It just seems to be that whenever there's a period of quiet, especially on this planet, they decided to act up, and it's usually our jobs to put them back in their place. Most of their activity seems to be centered around their old hangout, their old headquarters for the House of Salvation, which is the Riis-Reborn Approach, which used to be held by Aramis and her council, especially around the splinter of darkness that is seen hanging over where she gave Phylax their ability. My self-appointed mission was to basically clear out the House of Salvation in this area. Not just the Riis-Reborn Approach, but the Technocrat's Iron, which seems to have increased the amount of Vandals, Dregs, and Marauders. No sign of any captains or high servitors, but maybe they're out in hiding, knowing that they're going to get their face stomped in by me or any other Guardian. During my adventure here, it seems to be that the deeper I go, the more fortified that these Eliksni seem to be, seeming that they're way more prepared than the last time they got, stomped in by the Guardians. But also during this time, it seems to be that they're hiding something or they're building something. Similar to when we had to steal the prototype of Salvation's Grip, in my opinion, one of the worst grenade launchers we ever made, because it's entirely pointless, but to each is their own at this point, whether the weapons are good or not. Anyways, back to the main point. It seems to be that once again, like with what happened with Salvation's Grip, it seems to be that they're building something. Especially when I had to go even further within their stronghold. Around this time, there were more captains and servitors being seen. But nothing more than that. It seems they're hiding the weapon very deeply within the Riis-Reborn Approach. Whatever these stasis-believing Eliksni are hiding is also getting the Vex in a tizzy, especially around the Kell's Rising section. As I've seen, there are far more goblins and harpies and hobgoblins there. Nothing seems to be out of the ordinary on the surface, but with this much activity happening here, it has to deal with darkness. It's most specifically stasis. Because why else there be this much activity on a frozen wasteland of a ruined planet that houses a giant head of probably the most egotistical person that we've ever encountered? My ghost picked up chatter amongst the Eliksni about the Vex activity and their attempts at destroying whatever they are building. I decided it might be a shame if someone else came in and tried to take what they're building. During this, it was pretty much an easy firefight to get through, not that much high security. You would think that at this point, two encounters with the Guardians, they would beef up their security, especially with most of their leadership gone. But you would actually be surprised. They're far more clever now than they were before, as by the time I cleared out the entire area, it seems whatever they were building was gone. Taken somewhere. For a moment, I didn't even know what, but it seems to be a different area. One they've conveniently temporarily blocked off. We would have to wait until this area was opened up during their normal operational hours to actually go in and take the item for what it was. All we found at that point was nothing but servitors and shanks patrolling the area, making minimal amounts of effort to disguise that this was all nothing but a ruse, most likely to throw the Vex off for whatever reason. What would Vex need this? Later on, I decided to attack during their normal operational hours. It seems to be that they're way more fortified than I previously believed to be. Even my ghost was far more impressed that they're putting this much effort to keep me away. I first decided to destroy their fuel tanks. It seems to be they're keeping a lot of ether. Some even have stasis crystals. It seems to be that they're most likely building another stasis gun, most likely to replace the fact that, we basically stole the prototype of Salvation's grip and used it to make our own. It seems to me that there were more canisters than before. Probably they're planning on mass producing more stasis weapons. For purposes unknown, I do believe that this is an attempt at retaking lost territory that they used to control, and most likely expand their operations to Earth, most specifically the EDZ and the Cosmodrome, anywhere where they can actually get an attempt at attacking us, most specifically the city, and carry out Aramis's original plans, which was destroying the Traveler and killing all of us Guardians. Luckily for us, that these firefights, up until we got to where they're hiding this machine or whatever they're building, was really not that hard. Yes, they were more heavily fortified, but nothing is too dangerous for us, or nothing that much of a challenge. I mean, we literally killed high gods, we killed an alien that's the disciple of the witness, we've taken on Callus, we've literally broken the Vegs more times than we could remember, and we've also basically nearly wiped out most Elixir throughout the system. But, points for trying for these guys. At least they're trying something different. Much more than the Cabal and the Vex at this point. The deeper and deeper we went within their stronghold, a bit more fortified it seemed to be. Up until we got to a point where there was seemingly nothing. No shanks, no servitors, no vandals, marauders, no drags, not even a heavy shank. It just seems to be from this point all the way up until where we got to the room, there was nothing. Not even other canisters to destroy. It seems to be after this room where all the canisters were stored, up until where this new prototype weapon was, seems to be nothing. But, I guess they're hiding all the best numbers somewhere else. Or at that point we thought they were just planning on doing something to really get the jump on us. Well, nothing really shocks me about the Elixir anymore, especially the more villainous types. They really, really hate us, which I really don't blame them, because we've basically curse stomped to their faces. How many times at this point? The deeper and deeper we went, we just mainly found explosive shanks. Up until we got into the final room, there was nothing else but those, or just plain nothingness. And we later found out they've actually had more tricks up their sleeves. I can pretty much tell you that the Elixni, again, like I said before, are getting very clever, very desperate, and are most likely tired of us constantly face stomping them really, really hard. I mean, again, can you blame them? We've done this to them so many times, they're actually catching on to our tricks. They're just at this point throwing themselves so they can basically hide their ace up their sleeves. Doesn't really stop them, but again, points for trying. During my little raid slash expedition slash whatever you want to call it, I later found out what their defenses were. I can basically tell you that, again, they are getting clever at this point. It seems to be that they've redirected some of the electrical energy output within the entire Riis-Reborn approach and basically put it in some of their defenses, which seems to be why there's either very few enemies or almost no enemies for me to use my Osteo on them for. I'm getting more and more impressed with these guys, but it almost seems to be very tiring that, they're kind of playing hide and seek and then pop goes the weasel with whatever they're mostly planning. Like I was saying before, the closer we got, the tricks got interesting. Like I said before, they ended up reworking the electrical power and turned it into a trap. Basically, their attempts was to electrocute me and my ghost in order to stop us from, taking what's theirs. But they forgot to keep it on consistently, or at least have a faster timer, because we were literally able to outweight it. Then the usual trip mines came in, and then came the room itself. Still under the same splinter, Aramis gave Phylax and the rest of our forces their stasis powers. Now the item was guarded by an energy shield. Easy enough, just classic disable the generators as protecting it, and I'll be able to literally steal the weapon. It seems to be another stasis weapon type in the same vein as Salvation's Grip. I believe they're trying to mass produce more of these things or create a version of this. Upon taking it as a sample and hopefully being able to give to Ikora and Commander Savala, don't worry, I'm still planning on turning myself in, I'm just doing this because it's a good thing and also the right thing to do. I decided to basically escape. Now, everything basically came after me. Far more House of Salvation Elixni trying to stop me. But nothing but a good, simple, literally outrun everything, maybe throw a grenade or two, usually works. Always does. If there's too much forces and you just don't want to deal with it, just run. And that's basically what I did. Later on, when I actually made it to the surface level and outside of their general fortress of Elixni Solitude, I found out they actually placed an energy shield above me so I couldn't transmit out or call my ship in. Kind of a nice surprise. They tried this before with Salvation's Grip, but I never thought they would use the old same trick twice. Each is to their own. At this point, it became clear that they did not want me to leave. For whatever reason, this is far more viable than what happened with Salvation's Grip. It seems to be that this is bigger, part of some bigger plan that they're hopefully trying to execute, but would probably end up failing miserably. It's kind of how this type of thing goes. Like I said before, by deploying this energy shield over the Eventide ruins, this was a vain attempt to keep me trapped in here. Most especially so I couldn't try to transmat my way out of here, or call in my ship to basically get me out of here and take the weapon back. They also decided to deploy brigs, similar to the ones I fought earlier the year prior, and also during the Kel Scourge incident with the armory forges. Nothing more here, just basically try to destroy them and also destroy the generators, basically blocking me in. It wasn't until they decided to deploy larger brigs in order to try to kill me. Again, I'm getting really impressed with these guys. They're actually trying their hardest this time, giving it their all. But it seems to be a far more act of desperation. This seems to be part of a bigger plan, like I said before. But for what, I don't know. Probably something. I don't know. Their quite futile and vain attempts at keeping me locked in here was basically vain and futile. They really can't keep a good guardian down, especially this one. And with the power of Osteo, it made it quite easy. Especially when they decided to deploy larger brigs. It was quickly also assisted in my escape by ally Elixni, most likely from the runaway mob boss Spider or from House of Light. Seems to be they're onto something. Especially when the larger brigs started coming in. Especially Big Boy, what I'm calling Big Boy Brutus. Big Boy Brutus here tried to kill me, but as all things ended up failing. It still makes me think on what they're hiding or what they're planning. What is their end game? What are they planning that's very important for them to try to keep me locked in Eventide Ruins, try to kill me, and steal back an item that, they shouldn't even have? What are they planning? It wasn't until later when I found out why. But to keep another long story short, the brig went down and I was able to escape. All the other Salvation Elixni basically fell quite easily. After my escape of the Riis-Reborn Approach and the disabling of the Eventide shields, as well as taking the new experimental weapon of the Rip-Off Salvation's Grip. Yes, I'm calling it Rip-Off Salvation's Grip because it looks like it and it's a rip-off of it. It seems to be that the Elixni of House of Salvation were expecting a shipment of quantum power cells. They most likely took it out of the Braytech areas. Most likely got it when Clovis wasn't checking his security systems. This one became a quite easy search mission. Basically, find Elixni, take them out, and take these quantum power cells. Seems to be that any one of them had it. For reasons I have no idea, probably make it easier to not have one person carrying it all. It's quite clear that they're probably taking these quantum power cells to rebuild another stasis-based weapon and to mass produce these things. Maybe even create stasis-based grenades and all that, similar to what we Guardians use with Cold Snap and all the other stasis-based grenades. It's quite clear. But during this, it seems to be that they're far more organized. It's becoming quite increasingly clear that there's someone calling the shots. Someone big at the top. They're making it all about them. I believe it's a new Kel or someone that was beneath Aramis's counsel, now calling the shots and making their presence known. To who, I have no idea. But I was able to find out soon enough. While gathering the last few pieces of quantum power cells from any Elixni from House of Salvation within the Eventide Ruins, they were still talking about this new leader, a dark priestess similar to Kidris, hiding within the Gale's Watch. It's most specifically near the statue where Aramis stood. I had to do a quick raid on this area in order to stop this person. The Dark Priestess was actually heavily protected by brigs and many shanks, marauders, vandals, and whatnot. Seems to be that she was expecting me to come after her. But no matter what, I was able to get to her and have one final battle. I just had to deal with whatever she threw at me. After dealing with the last bit of her guards, I had to deal with someone beneath her and another servitor. Seems to be that she's following what the Dark Priestess was doing. Basically trying to protect herself with anything to stop me from completing my mission. which is now to stop her from properly resurrecting Aramis, or worse, trying to harness the power of stasis through other means. It became quite clear and evident that she is now desperate. She knows what I'm capable of. She knows what Guardians are able to do. So this seems to be where she wanted to make her final stand. Kind of symbolic, right in front of a pyramid ship. During my final battle with this Dark Priestess, it became quite clear and evident that this individual was using the same knowledge that Kidris used, probably mimicking her, or was also probably taught by her. It's quite unknown, but her ability to use stasis seems to lean more towards the fact that Kidris probably taught her. She probably was Kidris' contingency plan in case we defeated her and stopped the ritual of resurrecting Aramis. Throughout this fight, this Dark Priestess basically used Kidris' battle tactics, especially when I was able to do enough damage towards her, and before I could even continue the fight, this Dark Priestess summoned servitors to act as shield generators in order to put up some immunity shield around her. Where she was able to do enough damage to me, but I couldn't do no damage towards her until I took out the servitors. And throughout this fight, this individual kept using this tactic. Old tired one that Kidris used, but, doesn't mean I don't know what to do. Take out these servitors and bada bing bada boom, this person's easy to fall. This fight was not long and epic as I thought it would be. But taking out this Dark Priestess was no easy chore. This made me ponder, what was this Dark Priestess's plans all along? My belief is that the Dark Priestess's plans was to complete a ritual to save Aramis, to free her from her icy tombs, and to create new stasis weapons and bring House of Salvation back to a threat level that they were once the previous year. No doubt, in order to please the witness, and maybe have Aramis as her new disciple, and the House of Salvation as his army, most likely to attack us and destroy the Traveler as per the prophecy that was in the Throne World Pyramid. This is Reaper, signing off.